And we're live. Okay. Well, if you have caught this, this is the pre-show of Pete's Tech Den. We started here in about 10 minutes. Be starting here in just another few minutes. Got a pretty good. I think I've got a decent show today. See how long it goes. It might be a shorter one. I gotta make sure to start a local recording so I can have a local copy. Get a little bit higher quality than just downloading it from YouTube. Been trying to work on some house cleaning of recent. i.e. going through and finding the things that just don't need to be here anymore and don't get used, and things that can be, thrown away. Just no reason to hang on to this stuff. Clean up some space. Should once things are done, it should open up some more space here. Now that you guys can really tell, because you only see this chunk of the room, and for the most part, this chunk of the room hasn't really changed. Got the server set up over here, over there, and been working on some stuff that will come out in later shows. It's got to finish up some projects, get some things finished up. It's about that time. We'll be starting here in like a couple minutes. So, taking a peek at my traffic graphs to see. I never looked at all my PSNs to see exactly how much, when I was broadcasting, how much like uploads speeds I was pushing, how much data I was pushing that up there. What my bandwidth usage was. That's something I never checked. And so I was just checking. It's right around that, 2-3 megabytes. It's not bad. I've got 10, so got plenty. Well, it is that time. It is that time of week. Time of the week again. for another episode of Pete's Tech Den, show number 40, as filmed on March 11th, 2016. This is a long form podcast I will record out here on YouTube, so this is not your 5-minute video. Usually goes around 40 minutes or so, but here we talk about cool ways in which you can reuse old tech in new ways, give it new life, and also how we can just in general do just cool stuff with technology without breaking the bank. And then occasionally we'll dive into some of the moral issues that technology presents, and have some really cool discussions around that. But tonight, kind of doing something a little bit different from that, kind of. It's, I don't know, it's kind of similar last week where we kind of did somewhere in the middle, talking some technology. But I want to talk out about, as the title suggests, it's kind of my journey from being a Mac user to now I'm very much on that path to, my plans to the next computer I get will be a machine designed on, made to run Linux. And so kind of wanted to talk about some of that journey and like some of the things I feel like I learned that are some good things to remember, especially when going out and like buying technology and stuff like that. But yeah, so I grew up on Mac, on Apple computers, from as far as I can remember. That was the kind of computer we had in at my house. We even back to some of the older like all-in-ones where they kind of like the kind of bubble shaped with the kind of semi-transparent clear plastic with a colored shield on top. But so I grew up all through Mac, and then as going to college, like I bought myself my first computer, which was one of the white unibody MacBooks. And really, I guess for me, I knew about Linux, and like my brother and stuff had done stuff with it. But my kind of journey to moving myself to that didn't really start until my junior year. By this time, I sold the MacBook and bought a MacBook Pro, and very, very happy with that. But I got a job as a student worker in IT, and because of that, I got access. They were just gonna throw away a bunch of computers. These are like old. These are like Pentium 4s with maybe like 512 megabytes of RAM. Because school is very much a Windows focused environment, so those computers weren't gonna really do a very good job of running Windows 7. Just not enough resources there. And there was even one, it was because like most of the computers were like DDR, and then like RAM, and then there was one of them that's I forget what it's called. It's whatever was before DDR, and so it actually had 4 sticks of RAM, but those 4 sticks only made up 256 megabytes of RAM. Each stick was only 64 megabytes. So basically low resource computers. And so with those, like, because they were just gonna get rid of them, so I shifted them into my room, and um, I did a little bit with them there that my junior year, but then I really started doing some stuff with them during my senior year. I'd moved off campus and had my own apartment and stuff, and then began to do some things with them um, on a couple of different projects that I worked with my brother on. I wanted to set up a print server, a cups print server on one of them, so that I could take my USB printer and basically put it on the network and allow me to, access that over the network and be able to print wirelessly. Because I was like, that would be really nice, not to have to go to my printer and stuff and hook up. So I'd done that, and then I'd also to try to construct something to, because on campus, previous to the current system, we'd had some of these HP thin clients, and so it had like a Citrix server that allowed like thin clients to run XP. They were really, really slow. But those were rented. But apparently we had we had more thin clients than what we rented. So when we returned stuff, we still had some thin clients left over, but no server. Citrix. We had to return the Citrix server, and so didn't have anything to use them with. And so they just kind of got stuck back in the storage room and left. And so I'd taken one of my computers and turned it into, it was an LTSP server, which is basically the Linux terminal service project. It was basically like a Linux version of the Citrix. And so I created that, and that allowed us to use some of those thin clients for to help with like registration and stuff down in the business office. And so those kind of things. And then I actually bought newer parts, which actually the parts for this other project I'd worked on are actually the parts that make the computer that I'm actually broadcasting on now. As I've shifted things around kind of again. But I built a Myth TV box because it's kind of, now that I was out of the apartment, didn't have access to the TV there at my apartment, and so I did a couple of different things, from building my own TV antenna, which was kind of fun, and then I built this Myth TV box, which basically kind of acted like a DVR. I had an HD home run that is basically the TV tuners. But kind of, up to this point, the biggest theme for me, like in my use of Linux and kind of my movement toward that, was a lot of the stuff was just setting up a computer for a single purpose. And it wasn't really my like daily driver or something that even like, they're mainly basically servers in a way, kind of like that's what the LTSP was. That's what the print server was. The Myth TV box, like a Myth TV was all I used it for. Like watching TV was all that I used it for. So, I was kind of like, I would, do almost everything on my Mac. And then for these, single purposes, I'd hop on a specific, Linux box to do something. But that was pretty much it. Um, and then kind of the next step for me was that um, when when I graduated and started working full time um, in the IT department, I was given uh, a laptop with, a work laptop with, it had Windows 7 on it, but pretty much had, you know, freedom to kind of do whatever I wanted to do with it as long as I could get my work done on it, which has been really nice. Um, and so after a while with Windows 7 on it, I started dual booting with just a stock Ubuntu setup. Um, and then, and so I would pretty much, like, the Windows side of the computer was just there just in case I needed to boot back into it to do something, as I kind of got used to things and figuring out how to, do the different things I needed to do. But I didn't really use it all that much because a lot of what I have to do is, done in, either an email client or a web browser. I mean, that's basic. That's a lot of it. And then there's a couple of things where I have to remote into our remote desktop, our remote server to do some stuff. But not a lot of stuff. And so I kind of got more and more comfortable with it. Just from the fact that now I was like using it all the time. And then eventually I just decided I would change the Linux operating system every once in a while, just try something new. Because I first went from just stock Ubuntu with the Unity desktop, then I jumped. I'm trying to think. I feel like I had Kubuntu on there once, and then I ended up going to Ubuntu GNOME Ubuntu GNOME. So with the GNOME desktop, and then I was on that for a while, and then Fedora 23 came out, and I decided I wanted to use that and give that a try, and tried that for a while, and then screwed some stuff up on the computer. And so I reinstalled and went to what I have right now, which is Ubuntu Mate, which is kind of what I've been working on with for now until I decide to try something else. But probably the biggest thing was that just from working on it constantly at work, like, it's becoming more and more familiar with it, and at the same time, like, I was starting to listen to all these, Linux podcasts over on the Jupiter Broadcasting, which always had some great podcasts over there. But so not only was I getting used to it, just using it all the time, but I was listening to some people who been using it for a while. And it's kind of funny because, like, they'd asked questions about, talked about, like, what are the things that are like asking people, like, what are the things that are keeping you from switching to Linux, as they talked about, where they try to switch people and what kind of questions they would ask, that kind of thing. And so that kind of like got me thinking about like, okay, what are the things that about, Mac OS X, what is it about Apple, and really is like, some of the really like, probably like the biggest thing that I remember thinking about like this is, like like the thing that right now, like as I look at it, that's the biggest thing. And for me, it was like the trackpad on Apple computers. I love them, and the multi-touch gestures that just allow you to move around the desktop. Plus, I mean, just in general, like I mean, working IT, seeing all the student computers come through, like really a lot of the laptops and stuff I was seeing, where they were made Windows and I could like load Linux on them. Like they just weren't a very good build quality. And so I was kind of like, well, nah. And then there's like, I guess like a couple things that kind of just like, I don't know, a couple things that happened. Like, well, one, part of the reason I'm, recording this on this computer is the fact that I've had all kinds of problems with my Mac laptop, which I think is actually sitting out in the living room. Wi-Fi problems, which, the first computer, they tried all different kinds of things and then ended up giving me more than I thought I'd ever get. Like they gave me store credit, for what I paid for the computer 3 years prior. Which, I mean, I will say, customer service wise, Apple is like the best. I mean, they are pretty awesome when it comes to that. But so I was having problems with that. They give me I get a new computer. I throw in like an extra $1,000, so this is like a $2,500 laptop. And after about 6 months, it starts having problems. The same Wi-Fi problems. Like, I mean, they're both Wi-Fi connectivity problems. Not exactly sure whether maybe the exact same kind of problem. And well, my MacBook Pro that I have now is still having problems. Which at least for now is why I have another appointment set up to go out to the the Apple store and try to figure it out. And so I don't know. It was kind of like some of these problems, like, having a great trackpad is nice, but it's kind of useless when your Wi-Fi doesn't work. Which, really stinks. Let me tell you, I haven't had a functioning laptop in like a month. So there was that, and then the other thing was on listening to Linux Action Show out on Jupiter Broadcasting. they talked about this company called System 76, which is, I think, basically their slogan is, they build computers born, designed to run Linux. Um, and I actually talked about them on a previous show, but like they talked about them because they're a sponsor, and um, I'd gone out and looked at their computers, and I don't know, just nothing really kind of, I guess, grabbed my attention. Nothing really seemed that spectacular. Kind of felt like, well, I mean, for what you're getting, it still seems a little bit pricey. Yeah. Um, but then they talked about this computer, a laptop called um, Thorinx Pro, and I went out and looked at it. I feel like I looked at the computers maybe a little bit more thoroughly. I feel like the other times I just gone out and like just read down through the, like, you can click on the computer and you kind of goes through and gives you kind of some of the basic stats of what. Usually it's referencing the base model, but I'd never really clicked on like the design build where you can customize it and stuff, and seen some of the other options that they give you. Um, but yeah, so I went out, saw this Orange Pro, and literally, I mean, it was the first computer, like I've said before, like that wasn't an Apple computer, and yet left me thinking, I really wish I could justify buying this right now. Like, I mean, really salivating. Like, I mean, just some of the things like, well, the fact that it has 4 RAM slots for a laptop, that's like unheard of. The fact that you can stick in 4 hard drives, another unheard of. Like, it's just like you start getting into some stats that you can, if you wanted to, you could bump if you bumped it all the way up. Um, where it was like, these things sound more like a desktop, but yet it's in a 15-inch, 5.5 pound laptop, which is like just amazing. Um, and so kind of seeing, uh, uh, you know, seeing that, and then started looking at some of the other ones. Some of the other ones have similar options. I was like, oh yeah, like I kind of, that combined with the Wi-Fi issues, the problems that I've been having with Apple, kind of woke me up, and I don't know, still like I was thinking about it today. I was like, it can be why it's really good not to get, how do you say this, like basically completely sold on, like, you'll only buy this one brand, but like, I mean, it's okay to like be buying like a singular brand, but um sometime, but you kind of have to keep like an open mind and looking at other, your other options. Because, like, I mean, growing up, you know and really until probably, I mean, so probably about a year ago, like I would have said, if you want to buy, if you want to go out and buy a laptop and, really get your money's worth, like, maybe you're going to have to pay a little bit more. You're not going to be buying the cheapest one, but it's going to be a solid, you know, well built, high quality laptop that's going to last you for years, and is probably going to last longer than you would like it to. Like, you're going to buy an Apple computer. And, you know, I was totally sold on, and Apple products. From although I didn't own an iPhone. I think they're great phones. From what I've seen, iPads, to the Apple computers, to the iMacs, to the Mac Pros. I mean everything. Like I was totally in on the whole Apple ecosystem, and really for much of my life, I kind of saw it um, as an Apple versus Microsoft, Windows versus Mac OS X, kind of a competition. And I guess recently just seen the validity of Linux like on the desktop, and like I don't know, like I've just become like it's I don't know, enthralled with it. I guess would be one way. I don't know. Like I'm just like totally sold just on just like if there's anything you really want to do on the desktop, like it's pretty much a Google search away. Like there's so much you can do with it and be like super creative, and like that's like for me that's what I love to take you know bits and pieces of different pieces of technology and put them together in maybe ways that you're not the people who originally designed them maybe aren't thinking, or um, maybe aren't the normal ways of going about doing things. But like uh, like for my podcast catcher, what I've done is I'll actually have a computer back here, down here, um, that is that's running, and it's got Rhythm Box, which is a podcast catcher on Linux that it runs it there. And then I also have the Tonito, which you've talked about earlier. That was one of the early episodes um, about which basically is just like a server software that runs on a desktop, and basically allows one of the things that it allows me to do, and it's something that it's one of the reasons I keep it around. Is it allows you to stream any kind of audio files, anywhere, whether that be um, through their app to your phone, over through a web browser. Um, you can get it pretty much anywhere as long as you have an internet connection. Um, and so that way I can suck all my audio files down to that computer there, and then stream it wherever I want. I can even, if you want to, you can even download it. So it's kind of like those ways where, kind of creative ways um, of accomplishing things. Um, but yeah, so it's just like, and there's so much, like, I mean, there's like a lot of times when I have a problem with my Apple computer, I'm taking it to my to the Apple store, but one thing would be really nice, like in some ways, recently they'd taken some data, recorded some diagnostic data from my computer and sent it to engineering, and like then they get back to the Genius Bar, and then they call me, and so there's kind of that or basically have to talk through the Genius Bar, back and forth. where, sometimes it'd be nice. I've thought about this because I don't agree with their engineer's assessment of the problem. But in some ways I was like, wow, it'd be nice if I could just go there and, sit down, just talk with him, and maybe communicate some things that maybe they weren't getting communicated properly. I don't know. Well, you can't. I mean, I guess that's one of the things like I like about open source. It's just the ability to. I mean, you can jump in forums and talk with. A lot of times depending on how big the project is, you can like actually talk with and speak to the developers and stuff, which is kind of can be fun if you have a problem or if you have a question. You get to hear about where they want to take stuff. But it just, I don't know. It just allows you to do a lot more with the computer, which is always kind of fun. Like with I'm using OBS, which is a thing that allows me to broadcast up to YouTube as open source piece of software. Basically, it's an open source kind of version of Google Hangouts in a way. Kind of, because you can do it through Google Hangouts. I just choose to do it through this. But it's really nice because, like, on my Mac, even if I hooked up a second camera, I can only use one camera, which kind of a bummer. So now I actually have two cameras hooked up, which, granted, I mean, the second one doesn't look as great, but now I can use both cameras plugged into one computer, which is really nice. And with Apple, that's just not possible. So I guess, I mean, this is kind of my journey, and I guess just kind of the one thing is like, I guess to learn from this is, like I said before, don't get locked into one brand. Always, be open to move, because things don't always stay the same, are not going to stay the same for all of history. Companies go up and down, and they rise and they fall, and that's another thing that's really nice about open source software, is because when the company goes away, the code is still there, and you can still use it, and other people can pick up and develop it, and all that kinds of fun stuff. But yeah, that's just kind of what I wanted to talk about. Just with some of the changes, because it's been happening, throughout basically the course, all of this transition, and so just kind of wanted to let you guys know about it and some of the transition, and I mean, this is gonna be an ongoing transition for me. But yeah, that's the show. So, we're that is the end of the show. But I just wanted to, I don't know what, I've still not gotten this wrap up down. 40 shows later, and still trying to figure out how to end it. But yeah, that's all for this week. I got some fairly cool developments. Working on some stuff. Hopefully we'll have some announcements next week. So yeah, you should come out and join us. We're out here every Friday at 8:30 p.m. Actually, just thinking about this, I may have something going on. No, not next Friday. That's later in the weekend. So yes, we'll be here next Friday. We'll be here, here pretty much every Friday at 8:30 p.m. Central Time, which is whatever 7:30 Eastern Time and 2:30 UTC. But yeah, we're out here, and you can find us out on right now we're in the transition of websites, but you can find us either. For now, we are at petestechden.wordpress.com. Shortly moving to the lifepadnetwork.com. And if you guys have any kind of like either cool projects that you're able to find like a creative way to do it cheaply, or a project that you want to do and want some help trying to figure out a way to do it cheaper, you can always send me those kind of ideas at pdinner@lifepadnetwork.com, and welcome those. Hoping we can get somebody else's project besides just mine to talk about, because I'm always kind of interested to see what other people are doing. But we will see you next week, next Friday at 8:30 Central Time.